Finding sponsorship is without a doubt the most difficult challenge a driver faces. And perhaps the toughest part is figuring out just how to begin.
Well, I think you start with desire, and that's the fuel for this whole process of pursuing a career in racing, and it's the fuel to the process of pursuing sponsorship. Because acquiring sponsorship is the single most difficult part of the racing business. Despite what you might think about winning on the track, that's a challenge, and it's a big challenge. But having the money to finance your career in the lower levels until you get to a top step where somebody's going to hire you to drive, that's the hardest part of the business. And if you don't want it bad enough, if you don't have that desire, it makes it a big challenge. You know, all of us are racers. We know the racing business really well. It's easy for us to walk around a racing trade show and dialogue with people about a piston or a camshaft or a tire or a wheel. But your sponsorship could come potentially from any kind of industry: the beverage industry, the apparel industry, the shipping industry. So your ability to understand at a high level what's going on in multiple industries is important. Therefore, research, current events, following the news, especially the business news, will sometimes signal to you opportunities. It's not just yourself, but I call it your platform. It's essentially who you are and where you're going. Especially if you're a young driver trying to go somewhere, your destination or your dream is far more compelling than the specific series you're racing in right now. And so being able to paint the picture of that destination and that dream and what you're trying to do as a process to get there is really important. You can't just sell next year. The first thing is you really need to understand their company. You need to ask lots of questions. I typically tell young drivers you need to spend 80% of your time on them in a meeting, on the company, and 20% of the time talking about yourself, maybe even more than that. Because the key is you come into the meeting not understanding much about the business typically. Despite what you can research, you really need more granular, more specific details about their company. I'm pretty obvious as a racing driver. I'm a young racing driver, I need money to race. That's not too complicated. So you should spend most of your time in your sort of first exchange, first meetings in asking questions and learning about the business. With that knowledge, you can go away and tailor your proposal specifically to fit what you've learned. I like to tell people that companies never make decisions. People make decisions. And so it starts with people. It starts with a network of people. In my case, I didn't know anybody when I started. And I had to find sponsorship from the day I decided to get into a race car. And so I had to build my own relationships. One of the ways I did that was going to trade shows, places like this PRI trade show, where I could walk from booth to booth, and I knew I had a 100% chance of at least meeting somebody if I stuck out my hand and introduced myself. So it's very uncommon to go from 1 to 10 overnight, or from 0 to 10 overnight in the sponsorship business. More times than not, you start with a small deal and build it and build it and build it. And one of the reasons for that is a company has to have a comfort level that what they're going to try with you is going to work and that they like it. And if they do, and you can prove a return and you can prove that that was a good decision for them to make in a small way to start, then you can replicate that and increase the size and scope of the deal. I've never done a sponsorship deal with somebody that wasn't at least interested in the idea of cars or racing. But that's a pretty wide group of people. From there, it's about identifying what their needs are, how money flows in and out of the business, as I said, and ultimately making sure that what you propose is going to register with them from a business perspective, that they can really look at that and say, that's an interesting opportunity for my business. It is important not to overpromise. I think the ability to have a clear checklist at the beginning of what you're going to try to accomplish, what you're going to deliver specifically, and then at the end to go through and literally tick the boxes and demonstrate to your sponsor that you've met all of those requirements plus additional deliverables. That's a really powerful way to demonstrate value over and above expectations, and also to then take the deal into multiple years. There's a lot of parallels in anything that you sell, is understanding a company's specific needs. A company will never change themselves to fit your racing program. They're this big, you're this big. So you have to be a chameleon in terms of adjusting your racing program to fit the company's needs. Well, I think persistence and the desire can really be used interchangeably, but having the passion and the push and the drive to make it happen only gets you so far. Because at the end of the day, any company that's going to sponsor you is a business. They have money coming into their business every day and going out of their business every day. And part of your job is to understand how and why that money flows in and out, and making sure that your racing opportunity, your sponsorship proposal fits their business and the flow of their business.
I take my chances, obviously, and they have paid off. But, you know, safety is always my first concern.